Joe's Inner Child Podcast.
Speaking of Walking Dead,
Yeah.
I just saw you as Silas's mom.
Yeah, that was so cool.
I didn't even realize it was you. Can you comment at all on working on Walking Dead and the world beyond?
I mean, well, it was beyond exciting. Again, so like I'm a huge sci-fi fan. I love The Walking Dead. And so I didn't know much about the show, obviously, when I worked on it. But yeah, it was an amazing experience. I love Hal, who plays my son. And it's such a great show. I really wasn't watching a lot of stuff before. I just wasn't watching a lot of stuff actually during the quarantine. I know a lot of people have been binging. I've kind of been the opposite, but I was watching that because I knew I was coming up and I just wanted to, kind of be up to date. And I got really excited because I got so into the show. I love the characters. It's a different way of looking at the apocalypse and it's the after and these kids that they have grown up and that's all they know. And again, that's even an intriguing thing right now when you think about what's happening right now. There's going to be kids that like this is their normal,
right.
And it's really fascinating to look at it from that perspective. But the young actors on that show are just so great, and everyone involved. Again, I just feel super blessed to be able to say now I'm a part of that franchise too.
Yeah.
And I'm not dead. So
yes, I love it. So hopefully, see you again. But
yes.
Now I've hogged your attention. We've spoken about a couple topics, and I'm gonna let Jexa hop in. I'm even gonna mute myself so I don't interrupt her. And so my
look
dog
at that
can
control.
bark.
That control.
So Jexa, hop in and ask about the voice acting.
Returning. Yeah, so I don't know. I love doing voices and weird noises and all that stuff. Just basically to amuse my kid, my stepson. Especially South Park. Like I love doing the voices from South Park. So how did you said you started out film acting and then switched to the voice acting. That's really interesting. Like how did that even happen?
It was a total accident and fluke, except to say that that it wasn't, in the sense that like a lot of things in life, I think that if you work hard and you keep putting in the effort and pounding the pavement, sometimes you get an answer that really wasn't what you expected.
Right.
But you get this answer. And so at the time that I got my voice agent, I was like pounding the pavement literally. And I was like, had probably 3 jobs. I worked at this really snooty boutique in Santa Monica, California, like with women who would come in and were horrible. But I was really like, there being an actress.
Right.
And so the voiceover, and I was getting some work and doing some work, but nothing had changed my life yet. And the voiceover thing was just a fluke. Some agent that I met with for something else said, you're really well spoken and you do these accents and stuff. Have you ever thought about voiceover? And I was like, no. And so I had a referral to this agent, and that agent, this voice agent, her name's Sandy Schnarr, changed my life. She took a meeting, because she was friends with this person, but the gist of the meeting was like, it's really hard to break in, and there are people who are already doing it and they can do everything. So people don't really need you. Because that's one of the misnomers about voiceover. People are always like, oh, well, I could do voiceover.
Right.
And I will contend that I think it's harder to break into voiceover than it is on camera acting, because there's these people like a D. Bradley Baker or a Gray Delisle that can do everything. And so they don't need you, really. You have to come into it like giving them something different that they can't get somewhere else with someone that they already know.
Right.
And so, but she did, she's like, well, you can get in the booth and we'll see what happens. And so she gave me this piece of copy, handed me some copy to kind of like work on. Literally, I think she turned in the hallway, came back like 20 seconds later and said, you ready? And I was like, oh, this is a test of my abilities. And I was like, yeah. So went in the booth, and then before I had even pulled out from the parking lot, she had texted and said that they wanted to work with me. And then
That's awesome.
And then honestly, my second audition was for Knights of the Old Republic. And like I said, I really think that it was just my love of sci-fi and, and not thinking that those stories are silly, but
Sure.
but being like, I can totally do this. I can totally be a space scoundrel. Are you kidding me?
Heck yeah.
So that was like blessing. And I think again, that sometimes I look at it now and I worked really, really, really hard up until that point. And I felt like it was like, again, you don't know how your hard work is going to pay off, but you put stuff into the pipeline and you keep doing that. And you try not to act like you're entitled to stuff just because you're cute
Right.
or you whatever, you moved there and everyone in your hometown thinks that you're awesome. Because there's a lot of that. There's a lot of people showing up in
sure.
LA going, well, I was the cutest person in my town and everyone thinks I'm hilarious. And,
Right.
it's like, there are people who've been here for a long time and
Right. Yeah,
they've worked really hard. But
the
so
competition's probably pretty stiff.
it is. And it's more open now. I will say that, like that there's a point of optimism to this, that with the internet and the way things are going,
Right.
you can break through, but you still have to work really hard, work on your craft, and remember again that they already have D. Bradley Baker. They already have James Arnold Taylor. Those guys can do almost anything. So, there's room for new people, but it's not
Right.
just going to be because your grandpa told you that you made a funny voice. So work hard, but I want people to be optimistic. I mean, if it's your dream, seriously, go for it, but work hard and try not to be an entitled little schmuck.
That's good advice for anything, really.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not something I would like really try to do. I just think it's fun. I think it would be an exciting thing. And I do have a friend here who's he's writing a little cartoon of some sort and he wants me to do some of that. And I'm just like, man, that would be so cool. So like,
well, first, back to what you said, just for 1 second, if your friend is putting together a project, that's a really great way to work with other talented people and to have them have you on in the beginning because they think that there's something about you that's talented and right for it. And I do actually think, I got to say, I think that you have an interesting, unique speaking voice that already lends itself to what I can see for a certain animated character. You know what I mean? Like that you wouldn't have to put it on. So I want to seriously leave it with the optimism that like, if you've got talented friends, especially, and they're like, hey, come on board with this in the beginning, that is a good way to start these days that didn't exist.
Right.
Even like probably 15 years ago. So
right.
Maybe even 10 years.
Literary Joe's Inner Child Podcast.